Hey folks, it's Mark back here, and hoping you all had a good Record Store Day weekend. Hope you went out and supported your local independent record store, either on Saturday, actual Record Store Day proper, or on Sunday. I did both. I hit a couple stores on Saturday and then a couple more on Sunday. Couldn't do them all in one day; it just couldn't happen. But yeah, so I wound up, as I usually do, with the Record Store Day releases. There's some stuff I want, but a lot of it I could do without. And so typically I only get a few Record Store Day releases and spend most of my money just on their used records or their library stuff. So that's again what I did this time. I think about 5 Record Store Day releases or things that had actually come out on Record Store Day. A couple things I couldn't find. I was looking for the Black Angels gold vinyl, I think limited edition version of their new album, Death Songs. Couldn't find that, so whatever. I'll wind up getting the black vinyl version. That's cool. And then a couple things I almost bought, but put back at the last minute just because the price, and I wasn't sure how often I'd actually play them, but I wanted that Cars Live at the Agora 1978. That's a good album. I have no doubt it's going to be a good sounding, good performance, but for $32, I just couldn't pull the trigger. I almost did. So we'll see if it's still hanging around. If it's still out there, I may pick that up. And then I was going to get that Def Leppard single. It was a repress of their first EP, which came out on 7-inch, I believe. Well, 12-inch is how it's been released now. And I actually kind of like Def Leppard a little bit. I liked some of their stuff and was curious to hear this. But again, $15, 3 songs. I know it's rare, and but I just... the 11th hour, I just couldn't do it. So, but those were the only things. I may go back and get that at a later date. Who knows? But most of the other stuff I was able to find, and so here you go. I'll tell you the stores I stopped at. It's all stores here in Cleveland, and what I got at each one. So the first place I went to was a place called Music Saves. They primarily deal in new releases. They don't really have used records. They do. It's a very, very small section, but they typically deal in new releases. So I picked up a couple singles. These weren't new, but they had them. They were reasonably priced at $5.99, both on Third Man Records, the Jack White label. This is an all-female garage group called the Black Bells, and it's called Wishing Well. Good garage pop. Love their hairdos and their guitars, and they're just fun. The Black Bells. And then I got a Courtney Barnett single. I really like her a lot, and this is one, Boxing Day Blues Revisited, with a song called Shivers on the B-side. Courtney Barnett. This is a Record Store Day release that I picked up, the new War on Drugs EP. This is called Thinking of a Place. It's an early mix of a track that I assume will be on the next album. So this was reasonably priced, $10. New EP, and it's on Atlantic. There you go. It's part 1 and part 2. So it was kind of a good find. Then I moved on to Blue Arrow Records, and I love Blue Arrow Records. They are a used record store. I don't even think they sell new records there. If they do, only just a few. But they're just down the street from Music Saves. So I went ahead and hit Blue Arrow and picked up just a few things there. Early on I was kind of conservative of how much money I was spending because I knew I was going to be hitting multiple stores and I didn't want to blow all my cash, in one place. But and I must say, whenever I left Music Saves, I got a tote bag. Oh wait, here it is, a Record Store Day tote bag. So that was kind of fun. Gave that to me. So I make my way over to Blue Arrow, and they're used, but they have great prices and good stock, and it's just a well curated store. So these are the things I got there. Somebody dumped off all their 60s psych compilations, like Nuggets and Pebbles and the highs of the mid 60s, that offshoot of Pebbles. So all this stuff was sitting in a bin, and most of them were $15 to $25, which is reasonable to spend on Nuggets and Pebbles albums. You don't see those much. And I wound up finding a Pebbles I didn't have. Pebbles Volume 14. Never seen this before, ever. Seen all the other volumes. It's funny, there's like about 15 volumes that you typically see in the stores. Volumes like 1 through 12, and then volume 16 I've seen around, but you don't see 14. When you get into the teens, the Pebble series get difficult to find. But these are primarily American garage bands, mostly bands that only released one independent single in the 60s, and they compile these onto albums. So they're just like nuggets, but a little bit deeper. And then this one's called, what is it called? Kaleidoscopic Variations? Vibrations. Kaleidoscopic Vibrations. Came with a little, booklet, which kind of describes the groups that are on it. Bands from Milano, Italy, Boston, Massachusetts, Barcelona, Spain. I'm looking at Northern England, Chicago, Illinois, so Detroit. So this was a really good kind of, international collection of garage and psych tracks from the 60s. Never heard of it before, so went ahead and picked it up. It was $20, but, again, you're never going to see this. So I got those. And then for $3, Cherry Vanilla, Venus de Vinyl. This is her second album. Cherry Vanilla is kind of fun. She had an album called Bad Girl and a song called The Punk, released in '77, and very much, of that '77 punk sound, but with a little more of a cheek to it. It didn't take itself seriously at all, and The Punk is a great song. So she did another album, Venus de Vinyl, so I picked it up. She had previously been like a publicist for, I think, David Bowie, and also, who else? I forget who else she was a publicist for, but and also had appeared in an Andy Warhol film, so she was pretty well connected by the time she signed a deal with RCA and put out these two albums in the late 70s. And then I got my second tote bag from Blue Arrow. As I was checking out, they said, I was one of the first people there. They opened at noon, so I was one of the first people in the store. They gave me this bag, Blue Arrow Records. Love their logo, too. And inside were 3 albums. 3 local Cleveland albums, all sealed and everything. This first one, the Jazz Destroyers. I haven't opened any of these yet. I haven't even listened to any of these records yet. I just got them. So, but this is Smog Veil Records, and it is recordings from more than 30 years of Cleveland's post-punk pioneers that tore through the city in '78 like a Dadaist cyclone. Written right, and John Savage of England's Dreaming wrote the little liner note here. So anyway, this was thrown in for free. So, and then this is this album here. It's Mr. Stress Blues Band, blues stuff from Cleveland from I believe the early 70s. Yeah, 72 to 73. Curious to hear that. And then finally this, another Cleveland release. It's Schwartz Fox Blues Crusade. And it features Mr. Stress, whose album I just had here. And this is bright yellow vinyl, unreleased legendary 1967 recording of members of the James Gang and Mr. Stress Blues Band. So yeah, how cool is that? I got these 3 albums thrown into this bag, all for free. How cool is Blue Arrow? That's why they're one of my favorite stores in Cleveland. They really are a great store. So left there, and went over to, there's a little venue down the street, a live venue called the Beachland Ballroom, where a lot of the cool bands come through and play. And they have a little vintage store down in the basement. It's called This Way Out. And they carry, clothing, knickknacks, vintage stuff. But they have a good selection of records as well. So I picked up one thing there. 101 Live Letters. I used to see this around in the 80s. And then I stopped seeing it around. It's just various tracks from up-and-coming artists in the UK at the time. This was released in 1981, so it features Endgames, who I'm a big fan of. That was a Scottish dance funk act with sort of post-punk beginnings. Fay Ray, who I've heard about, don't know much about them. The Fix, yep, The Fix with 2 X's. Well, this is back when they had 1 X. The Fix, early material from them. And I wonder if that's Cy Kernan. It might be. And then down below, before Wang Chung were Wang Chung, they were Huang Chung. So it has 3 tracks by them as well. So it was $9. Thought, you know what? I'll go ahead and pick that up. Curious to hear those 2 bands' beginnings. Then I moved over to Bedford, Ohio, which is about maybe 20 minutes away. A store there called the Vinyl Groove, a really good store. And they've been open for, I guess, maybe 3 years, something like that. maybe slightly longer. So I went over there and wanted to see what they had, and here's what I picked up there. First, I picked up a couple record store day releases there. I got Creation Rebel. This is called Starship Africa by Creation Rebel. It's on the On You Sound label, which is Adrian Sherwood's label. And this was a 1980 album. It says, a true dub classic, backwards tapes drenched in interplanetary sound effects, ghostly voices from beyond the stars, and ringing percussion. One of the most out there attempts to push the limits of dub reggae beyond the final frontier ever recorded. How could I go wrong with that? Anyway, I've heard about Creation Rebel. I don't own any of their albums, but I think it's a project of Adrian Sherwood, but I could be wrong. If it's not, he's very closely related to this project, meaning produced it and so forth. So, look forward to spinning this one, Creation Rebel. And then I got Primal Scream. Big Primal Scream fan here, and so I got a new EP for Record Store Day release called Mixomatosis. And it's got 5 remixes. One by Anton Newcomb from Brian Jonestown Massacre. One by Wrangler, which is the project of Stephen Mallender, ex-Cabaret Voltaire. Who else is on here? Lynch Mob. I think that might be Dustin Lynch or Brandon Lynch, kind of a dance remixer from the UK. And then Jags Cooner and Andrew Innes mix. Andrew Innes is a member of Primal Scream. So, looking forward to hearing that. And then a couple of used records. This was 50 cents. General Public. This was Dave Wakeling and Ray King Roger from the English Beat, the project they formed afterward. Did a couple of albums. Had a big hit with Tenderness over here. This was the follow-up, So Hot You're Cool. It's got a dance mix of it. 50 cents. Thought I'd give that one a spin. This one I have. This was an original of the the Electric Prunes Underground. I almost said Velvet Underground. The Electric Prunes Underground. Never had this, never even heard it. But I have the first album, Too Much to Dream, last night, and I love that. Thought, you know what, let's give this one a try. I've seen it around before, but it's usually kind of pricey. So I found an original here, and it was $14 in good shape. So I thought, you know, why not grab that? And then I saw a video clip of this group, the Poppy Family, and I've heard a couple of tracks, which I liked. And, of course, Terry Jacks had a big old hit with Seasons in the Sun in the early 1970s. But before that, they were the Poppy Family, him and Susan Jacks, which I guess was his wife, I think. Anyway, they did this album called Poppy Seeds. So this is my first Poppy Family album. Saw a couple of video clips by them recently, forget even where, but I was really mesmerized by them. And I remember thinking, next time you see a Poppy Family album, pick it up. Well, lo and behold, I did. So there it is, Poppy Seeds. Kind of a wistful late 60s kind of pop. I don't know how else to describe it. Then I found this German New Wave collection, and it is called Alle für das Haus. I'm sure I butchered that. But it's just a collection of early 80s German New Wave acts. And anytime I see compilations like that of German New Wave and early 80s stuff from Germany, I try and pick them up. I've got about 4 or 5 other comps in my collection of German releases. And this has a trio, Da 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 Da. You know that one, Da 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 Da. And then it's also got Hubert Ka, kind of a cool little dance act that released a string of great 12 inches in the late 80s. Dance Club 12 inches. And then a bunch of other stuff I've never heard of. There's one other band on here called Obwarts that I'm familiar with. But for $10, I thought I'd give this one a chance and see how it is. All right, so that was it for Saturday. That was it for the Vinyl Groove, and that was it for Saturday. I had to get on to other things, so I thought, you know what, let's hit the pause button. Sunday, we'll go back out, and whatever will be, will be. You know, I'll see what's left over. So I went over to The Loop, which is a coffee shop / record store, and just picked up a couple things there. They didn't have anything there I felt like I really needed. But this interesting 7-inch, kind of a minimal synth 45 by the Filmcast, and it's called Life in a Filmcast. 1979 on True Friends Music, and I don't know, just looked, I love early English electronic music, and early 80s and late 70s English electronic music, so I'm interested to hear how this is. Looks pretty obscure. And then I've kind of been picking up the AC/DC albums as I find them, as, you know, as cheap as I can find them and as non-beat up as I could find them. So I found Highway to Hell for $5. My sister had this on 8-track. She was 6 years older than me, and so when I was about 10 years old, I used to listen to her 8-track tape of this, and always loved Touch Too Much, and really have always wanted this album, but never pulled the trigger, and found it for $5 in decent shape. Boom, it's mine. Then The Testimony by Feeney Tribe, big dance club hit in the late 80s. I loved it. I have the original 12-inch of this, but this had some other remixes of it. Feeney Tribe, a Scottish act, in which Chris Connolly was involved in. Chris Connolly later did a lot of great solo work and was involved with Pigface, kind of the whole wax track, Chicago wax track scene. Then went over to Mind's Eye, My Mind's Eye, which is another record store here in Cleveland that deals primarily in punk, metal, garage, psychedelic. So they have a great selection of stuff. Picked up a couple things there. This 45, which I've been looking for a long time, by Sleep Chamber. This is their cover of The Normal's Warm Leatherette. And I had this on a tape back in the mid-'80s that somebody taped for me. I didn't even know what it was on. So when I saw this 45, I had to pick it up. And then I got a couple of releases for Record Store Day. I got this Easy Beats album, and it is called Vigil. So I have a best of Easy Beats and love it. Absolutely love it. So look forward to hearing this. This is an Australian 60s, just 60s garage pop group. Really good. They had a big hit over here with Friday on My Mind. And then this, Cornflake Zoo, Episode 1. And this is just a collection of psychedelic pop from the late 1960s, mostly from the UK, I believe. Yeah, I think it's pretty much British, mainly British stuff. But anyway, I love stuff like that. The price was good. It was only $23.50. So, and it has 20 tracks on it. They crammed 10 songs on each side, so I'll be curious. Hope the sound quality's good. I'm sure it is. But so then finally the last place I went to was in Mentor. It was called Record Den. And they seem to have all the Record Store Day releases. And that's where I saw the Cars album and the Def Leppard, and really was close to pulling the trigger. I might go back out there. We'll see. But the only thing Record Store Day related that I picked up there was this Idle Race, and this came out actually last year for Record Store Day. This is the band Jeff Lynne was in before he formed ELO. And terrific stuff. I only have a couple of their songs on CD collections. Imposters of Life's Magazine is a great song. I see it's not on this album, but I'm curious to hear it. I kind of wanted to find it last year, and I never could. So lo and behold, and it was marked down to $22, $22.99. So the Idle Race. And the rest were just a few 12-inch singles that they had. I'm a big fan of 12-inch singles, so I just picked up a couple things that looked kind of interesting. I don't know. One I already had. Scritti Politti, absolutely. See what I did there? Absolutely love Scritti Politti and this song. Great example of British dance pop from the mid-1980s. Produced by Arif Mardin, who did a lot of the old Aretha Franklin tracks. And just terrific 12-inch. I had the US version, which I have, and it's got both the 12-inch mix and the B-side on it. Well, this is the original UK version, which had a really nice sleeve. Always love the sleeve to this. So it was $2. I thought, you know what, grab it. It's got a really terrific sleeve, and it's Scritti Politti, who I love. I have pretty much everything by Scritti Politti, so why not get that? Also a big fan of Virginia Astley. Just really good ambient, female-voiced, ethereal, kind of calming music. And she did a duet with David Sylvian of Japan once called Some Small Hope. She's a multi-instrumentalist, guested on many different people's records. One that comes to mind is All the Best Cowboys Have Chinese Eyes by Pete Townsend. She makes an appearance on there. But she's just a terrific musician in her own right. And this is a 12-inch called Tender, which had an extended version of it and 3 B-sides. I have the 7-inch of this, but it was good to find the 12-inch of it. And again, only $2. And you don't come across her stuff much. If you are interested in just kind of calming, ethereal music, check her out, especially an album called From Gardens Where We Feel Secure. She had another good one called Promise Nothing. So look for Virginia Astley. I'm a big fan of hers. And then just real quick, a couple of other cheaper 12 inches. Dance act from the late 90s from the UK, Regular Fries. This is an EP called Transmissions from the Jaw Office. So, or the War Office. Transmissions from the War Office. Looked like Jaw. So there you go. Got that. Intois Noir. I think that's how you say their name. Never quite knew how to pronounce their name. They were quite big in the UK in the late 80s. This is a 12-inch produced by Ian Brody of the Lightning Seeds. So I was curious to give this one a spin. $2. And then just a couple of others. Nothing really too notable here. Another Adrian Sherwood involved release. He remixed this 12-inch by Peter Scherer called Nerve Type No. There's that. So that's what I got. I really, you know, focused more on just kind of what was in the stores and was amused by the Record Store Day release stuff. But again, there wasn't much there that I needed. You know, wasn't much there that I felt like. You know, the Smith 7-inch, I came across that. That looked kind of cool. But, you know, it was 2 songs I already had. And I don't know. I just didn't. I left them behind for people that I figured would really, 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 you know, get the use out of them. For me, it would just be more I'd buy them, listen to them once or twice, and file them away. So I figure for other people, you know, let them have this. So I had a great time. I love going and supporting record stores on Record Store Day. I usually go later. You know, I don't typically get there early. I don't wait in line or anything. But I get there, you know, mid-afternoon, early to mid-afternoon. And, you know, for me, it's just, again, about supporting the stores. And I support them all year long. But, you know, I definitely make a showing out on Record Store Day. And, you know, and it's, I call it Record Store Weekend for me. So, anyway, I hope you all found what you wanted. And if you didn't find what you wanted, I have a feeling you'll come across it soon. Sorry, I got a low battery signal that just came up. But, you know, it's all about supporting the record stores and having a good time, and I hope everybody did. And I'll be back very soon to do another video. Hope everybody had a great weekend and has a great week. Talk to you soon.